Bryce Canyon National Park in Utah is a beautiful and unique place to visit with its tall hoodoos and stunning vistas regardless of the seasons. However, in the winter, the already breathtaking landscapes transform into something even more magical. Bryce Canyon National Park in the winter is something straight out of a storybook, a true winter wonderland. There's nothing quite like the interesting reddish hoodoos covered in sparkling snow. The pure white snow is in stark contrast against the red hoodoos, which makes their colors become even more vivid. There's also something peaceful about the flurrying of snow, fluttering against the pine trees and the striking landscape. A lot of times it seems like you have the whole place to yourself, so if you're seeking beauty and serenity, Bryce Canyon National Park in the winter is the place. Let's start off this video with some tips for visiting Bryce Canyon National Park in the winter. One thing we advise checking for is road closures. Following snowstorms, the main road through Bryce Canyon is usually closed right around mile marker 3. This typically lasts a day or more, so if you're hoping to go to Rainbow Point, it might not be possible. Depending on the conditions, it can be pretty unforgiving out in Bryce Canyon. You need to bring traction devices not only for you, but for your car as well. If you don't have spikes and/or snowshoes, you can rent them at the Winter Adventure Center, and you can also buy your own set of spikes at the Visitor Center. Aside from traction, the other major thing that you're going to be up against is the cold. There have been recorded temperatures here in January and February of -26 degrees. That could lead to a very real risk of hypothermia or frostbite. So if you're planning on visiting, please be sure to wear loose-fitting layers, wear waterproof outerwear, and keep your face and ears protected, especially if it's windy out. One thing's for sure, a warm V is a happy V. And the other thing that you need to know is that you will need to drive yourself around inside the park because the shuttle does not run during the winter. We're definitely not going to tell you how to plan your vacation, but if you're visiting in conditions like we did, you can pretty much see and do everything in about 2 to 3 days. There were other cross-country skiing routes that you can take and also some places where you can go snowshoeing. But with a lot of the trails shut down in the park, you can run out of things to do in just a couple of days. As I mentioned before, micro spikes or crampons will help you not only on the trails, but on iced over concrete and pavement as well. Some of those parking lots can get pretty slippery and you definitely don't want to fall down on the hard asphalt. As far as your clothing goes, make sure that your outerwear such as jackets, pants, shoes, and gloves are waterproof. This way if you get into the deep snow, you won't get wet and end up with hypothermia or frostbite. And also, layering is your friend here. There were times over the course of our visit where the temperature didn't seem that bad, and then other times where it felt like Arctic winter. If you have layers on, you can adjust according to the temperature. As far as your base layers and socks go, we highly recommend wool over cotton. And the last thing that you need on this list is a warm beanie and a neck gaiter to keep your face warm. Those are the musts as far as survival is concerned. But we also recommend bringing sunscreen. Even though there's not going to be a whole lot of you exposed to the sun, it's always good to have that. And sunglasses, because the sun reflects off the snow and it can be pretty blinding. And once again, you need those snow chains for your car. Not only can they be helpful when driving in the snow, but if conditions are bad enough, they are required by law. We brought a set with us on our last visit, and even though we didn't end up needing to use them, it was good peace of mind knowing that we weren't going to drive about 8 hours just to be turned away right before we got to the park. Now that we have all of that out of the way, let's move on to the list of things to do in the park in the winter. The first thing to do on our list is to take a scenic drive through the park. You might not be able to get to places like Rainbow Point and Natural Bridge, and it may not seem like you're getting to see most of the park since you're only able to drive 3 out of the 17 miles of the main road. The good thing is that even if the road to Rainbow Point is closed, you should still be able to get to Sunrise Point, Sunset Point, Inspiration Point, and Bryce Point. You can see some of those on the screen right now, and I can definitely say that they are all worth visiting. If you want to spend more time outside the car, then item number 2 on the list may be more your style, and that is hiking. Even though the view from the rim is breathtaking, there is nothing quite as awe-inspiring as hiking down amongst the hoodoos. We visited after a particularly heavy snow, so a lot of the trails in the park were covered. But luckily we were still able to do one of our favorites, which is the Queen's Garden to Navajo Loop. If you haven't seen that video yet, be sure to click in the upper corner right now because that hike is incredible. Some might consider this trail a little bit challenging, and if you fit into that category, don't even worry about it, because there is another beautiful option just a little ways outside the park called Mossy Cave. On this visit, not only did it take us to this awesome frozen waterfall, but we got to see a cave that was packed full of icicles as well. This is a great beginner hike, and you guessed it, if you haven't seen that one, you can click the link in the upper corner right now. If the snow is too deep to hike the trails in the park, there are still options, and that takes us to the next item on this list, which is snowshoeing. Being from Southern California, we don't get a lot of opportunities to do winter activities like this, so it's always a treat. If you have your own snowshoes or you have rented some, you can find out some of the trails that you can take them on in the visitor center. And you can also set out on 18 miles of trails that are maintained by Ruby's Inn. The Winter Adventure Center, which you can see right here, is where you'll be renting your snowshoes if you don't have your own. If you haven't been snowshoeing before, it's really fun and a great way to explore the backcountry. It can also be a little bit challenging because your feet are suddenly 5 times their regular size, so expect to trip over them a couple of times. The next item on our list utilizes those same trails that are maintained by Ruby's Inn, and it is cross-country skiing. Our last trip to Bryce Canyon National Park gave us our first taste of cross-country skiing. After about a 10 or 15 minute learning curve, we had a really great time. If you want to see that video, go ahead and click on that upper corner right now. With the exception of some of the downhill sections that terrorized V a little bit, it was really fun and I definitely think that we would do it again. We have now come to the last item on the list, and you're going to need some really warm clothes for it because it is stargazing. Bryce Canyon is known for its dark skies, and it's the perfect place to see the Milky Way in the winter. The only challenge is it is extremely cold. We recommend checking out Sunset and Inspiration Point because they're a great place to see the stars, and you're not too far from the car, so you can rush back to the heater if you need it. And that is going to do it for our video about how to visit Bryce Canyon National Park in the winter. We really hope that you enjoyed the video and that it will make your next visit a success. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to hit that like button because it really helps us out. And also be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. For more information about visiting Bryce Canyon in the winter and more awesome Utah adventures, head on over to thatadventurelife.com.